Search for Truth 2, Lesson 3, Chart 6. Fourth Dispensation, Promise. Ishmael, father of Arab nations. One of the first promises God made to Abram was one that his posterity would become a great nation. However, after 10 years in Canaan, there was no children. Rather than seeking God's counsel, Abram submitted to human reasoning. Abram took Sarai's maid, Hagar, as a wife. She gave birth to a son named Ishmael. God's will was not to establish the covenant with Ishmael. Had Abram trusted God's timing, much misery and tragedy could have been avoided. Isaac, the son of promise. 13 years elapsed without a single visit from God. Finally, the Lord appeared. They learned that the long-awaited son would be born that following year, and Sarah laughed. Abraham was 100 and Sarah 90 years old when Isaac, which means laughter, was born. When Ishmael mocked the new baby, Sarah demanded that Abraham send him and Hagar away. Ishmael became the father of the Arabs, but a constant struggle has existed between the Jews and the Arabs until this day. Abraham's test. In unmistakable tones, Abraham heard God's voice, but his requests seem unrealistic. Genesis 22:2. Now take thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. For God to request a human sacrifice was unthinkable. This promised son, long delayed, had brought blessing and happiness to their home. Not only must Abraham give up his son, but in the worst manner possible. For 3 days, Abraham, Isaac, and a servant traveled together to the execution. As they reached the base of Mount Moriah, the servant and donkey remained. Isaac carried the wood, flint, and knife as they climbed upward. Isaac questioned, "Father, haven't you forgotten something? Here is the wood and the fire, but where is the lamb?" Abraham answered prophetically, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. As Abraham raised the knife to slay his son, he again heard the Lord's voice, Genesis 22:12. Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Having exhibited such devotion, Abraham's blood covenant friend was pleased. Their loyalty to one another was assured. Then the father and son detected a welcome sound, the struggle of a ram caught in a thicket nearby. Immediately the animal was secured and sacrificed. Isaac, Esau, and Jacob. Isaac lived a quiet, peaceable life. At the age of 40, he married Rebekah. For 20 barren years, Isaac prayed, and his wife gave birth to twin sons. Before their birth, the Lord assured Rebekah that the elder would serve the younger. Esau was firstborn, hairy and red. Jacob, meaning supplanter or deceiver, was the younger. The elder son became a mighty hunter. Jacob, a quiet domestic youth, was a shepherd. Isaac favored Esau, and Rebekah was partial towards Jacob. As eldest son, the birthright privileges belonged to Esau. Therefore, he would maintain superior rank in the family and would inherit a double portion of his father's wealth and property. As heir, he would assume the priestly office or the spiritual leadership of the family. But best of all, he would be entitled to Abraham's covenant blessing, linking him to the genealogy of the promised Messiah. Birthright exchange. One day Esau returned weary and faint from hunting and noticed his brother Jacob preparing some lentil pottage. Famished and exhausted, he begged for a serving of the delicious food. Jacob recognized his chance. He agreed to share the pottage in exchange for his birthright. Esau hastily agreed to this trade his valuable blessing for a single meal. I cannot live on future promises. Give me something to eat and drink, or else I will die. Today, people will make similar agreements. They settle for temporal pleasures offered by the world for now. When Isaac became old and nearly blind, he instructed Esau to go hunting and prepare some venison. In return, he would immediately receive the patriarchal blessing. Rebekah heard Isaac's request. She directed Jacob to kill 2 kid goats. They were hastily prepared to Isaac's taste. Dressing in Esau's garments and wearing animal skins about his arms and neck to disguise his smooth skin, Jacob presented himself before his father. Isaac was suspicious. He inquired how the deer had been so quickly killed. Jacob lied that the Lord had brought it to him, but Isaac remained unsure. Next, he demanded to examine Jacob's arms. When the aged father made a perceptive analysis, the hands seemed to be Esau's, but the voice belonged to Jacob. Finally, Isaac ate the meat and then fully bestowed the covenant blessing upon Jacob. He prayed God to give him the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, that he would become a master served by other people, that nations would bow to him, and that he might become Lord over his brethren. Then he promised that all who blessed this son would be blessed, and all who cursed him would be cursed. Esau returned from his hunt. When he presented a steaming, savory meat dish to Isaac, the aged man began to tremble. Loudly and bitterly, Esau implored to receive just one blessing. Isaac falteringly blessed his elder son with prosperity, but that he must live by his sword and serve his brother. Angrily, Esau planned to kill Jacob. When Rebekah learned of Esau's threat, she sent Jacob to her brother Laban's house. She never saw him again. Jacob's dream. As the sun set that first evening of the journey, Jacob lay his head on a stone to rest. While he slept, God revealed some wonderful plans. As the heavens opened, a ladder rose from the ground to the sky, with angels ascending and descending upon it. When the Lord confirmed the covenant with Jacob that he had received from his father, Jacob discovered for the first time that God is near and that God is merciful and forgiving. For the next 20 years, Jacob lived with his uncle Laban. He bargained with Laban to marry Rachel, but at the end of 7 years, Jacob was deceived as he had deceived his father, and was given Leah as a wife. At the close of the marriage week, Rachel also became his wife, but he had to work for her father an additional 7 years. He reaped the deceit inflicted on his own blind father. An additional 6 years were spent working to accumulate a herd of sheep. During this time, 11 sons and 1 daughter were born. Jacob returned to his homeland with a large family, multiplied herds and flocks. As he crossed the border of Canaan, a strange sight greeted him. 2 companies of heavenly hosts came to welcome him home. Then the bad news came. Esau and 400 armed men were coming to meet Jacob. Did his twin intend to carry out his threat? Jacob has strategically divided his flocks and family into 2 camps, so that the latter might escape. Then Jacob approached God for divine protection. A new man, a new name. In the solitude of the night, Jacob began to pray, whereupon they wrestled a man with him until the breaking of day. Genesis 32:24. Desperately, Jacob struggled with this angelic visitor as he declared, "I will not let you go except you bless me." As the sun rose, the angel of the Lord granted the desired blessing. The name Jacob, supplanter and deceiver, was changed to Israel, a prince with God. The name of God's chosen people would then be Israel. In the darkness of that night, a new nation was christened and introduced as God's own. To mark this conflict, the angelic visitor touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh so that it forever remained out of joint. To commemorate Jacob's experience, Jewish dietary laws restrict the eating of the sciatic nerve, or the thigh vein, from slaughtered animals. The following morning, Esau embraced Jacob in an emotional act of forgiveness and reconciliation. Jacob agreed to leave the land of Jacob's inheritance, and his family retired to the mountains of Seir, later called Edom.